Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, go ahead and leave a 5-star review. I very much appreciate all of the reviews you guys have left so far. I will read them. I will read them no matter what you say. I have a couple of stand-up dates to promote. Going to be back on the Jersey Shore performing in Beach Haven, New Jersey. The venue's called Bird and Betty's on August 12th. And then I'm heading to New Orleans August 13th and 14th to perform at the Comedy House down there in New Orleans. This really funny guy named Ian. His last name escapes me, but he's opening for me. It's gonna be a great show. Love New Orleans. Haven't been there in years. And then heading back to Vegas with Comedians of the Compound. We're gonna be performing at the Plaza Hotel, the Comedy Works Comedy Club down there, September 10th and 11th. Then I'm heading back to Texas to headline Hyenas in Dallas, September 17th and 18th. Then Comedians of the Compound will be doing a stadium show in Lakewood, New Jersey. I believe it's at the Blue Claw, White Claw, some Claw Stadium in New Jersey, October 16th. And then I'm heading to Santa Monica, California to headline the Broadway Comedy Club West, October 22nd and 23rd. So it's going to be shaping up to a little bit of an LA trip for me. I'm excited to go back and see what's left of it. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. They are my go-to for all things CBD related. Cushy Dreams specializes in high quality CBD. Basically, like you can buy it in a tin. If you will want to pack it into a thing and have it that way. Or what I prefer are the pre-rolls. They're chic. They come in 5-packs like I have right here. Very easy to just slip into like your pocket, your purse, whatever. They have different indica sativa blends like Hustle, Create, Relax, Dream, Peace, Energy. So if you want to be a little bit up, a little bit down, Cushy Dreams has your back. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. They do tons of lab tests to ensure compliance and purity. You can find all of this on their website, KUSHYDreams.com. And at checkout, use promo code CMP. You're going to get 20% off every single order, and I believe free shipping as well. So check it out. I really enjoy their stuff. Makes me feel relaxed in these tense, anxious times. Anyway, the moment we've all been waiting for. Dun, 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 dun. So excited to have this gal on the podcast today. She is a culture writer, novelist. She is half of the Femme Chaos pod, and she's got a new book coming out October 21st called No One Will Miss Her. We're going to talk all about it. Kat Rosenfield, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing it. I am so sorry I didn't tell you this was on camera.
Yes, I'm perched right on the edge of my bed, so if I fall off in the middle of this conversation, I'm really sorry.
We'll all know why. Yeah, I was just, I don't know, I'm dumb for assuming that like everybody, and I myself throw on makeup literally 7 minutes before we're supposed to go live. And sometimes it's on my face, sometimes it's like on my forehead hanging off. So but we're here, we're doing it. Things are getting crazy. As more and more of our liberties seem to be taken away, I always like to check in on the libertarians and see how they're doing. Sometimes I feel like I identify as libertarian, and then other times I'm like, do I fit into any group at all? And then I'll try to explain to folks like what being a libertarian is, and I just feel like overall people are confused and ultimately complaining about libertarians. It's like, well, they don't stand up for anything. They're not like, because it's not one of the two parties. So I don't know. Do you sort of categorize yourself as libertarian?
I think the pandemic made me more libertarian than I was, but I was still very surprised the first time I saw somebody describe me that way. I was like, am I just kind of making an osmotic slide into libertarianism and I don't realize it? I guess I sort of err on the side of being uncategorizable at this point. For a long time, I would have said that, I was a liberal, but that doesn't mean the same thing that it used to. So I don't know. Who needs labels?
Yeah.
Right?
Who needs labels, right? I know. I was the same. I was like a voting Democrat at a college, like very much like, you look at me, you can guess my politics. Great. You're right about all of it. Like, I didn't vote for Hillary, but I was like, probably if the election was a couple of years before, I probably would have. But yeah, very much a kind of textbook Democrat, textbook liberal. And now it's like you got to be so far right, so far left to be considered just like a regular old liberal. It's confusing, and I know it's just human nature to want to put everybody in groups so you know how to like dismiss them or not dismiss them. But I think we should just try to just treat people like people. I want to know how you got into being like a culture writer. Were you always kind of um making these observations about kind of society? Was it like your turn in politics that made you want to write about everything?
Well, so I do have a kind of a long history, like a personal history of not being able to keep my mouth shut when I think something is true, even if it's not well received by the people around me. Which is not to say that I'm like, out there being brutally honest, telling people terrible things about their physical appearance or anything like that. But you were talking about like the sort of political segue from being like a, normal college educated Democrat to being something uncategorizable. And I was thinking about how I was dumped by all of my friends back in 2004, I guess, because that was when John Roberts was being confirmed for the Supreme Court.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I said that I didn't think he was actually going to be single-handedly responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, and that I thought he was actually probably pretty moderate. And everybody stopped talking to me.
That's what it took?
That was, yeah. And, it turns out that I was right, but sort of cold comfort at this point. But I wasn't writing about this stuff. I sort of fell backwards into being a writer after college. I moved to New York and I became a publicist, and I thought that was what I was going to do, like for a living for the rest of my life, just because it seemed like a job that I could do. And then it turned out to be a really bad fit because to be a publicist, you have to be a people person. And turns out I'm not. I thought I was, but I'm really, really not. And I was working with, since I was in PR, I was working with a lot of journalists, and I realized that I wanted to do what they were doing. And so I started freelance copywriting, thinking that I could maybe eventually segue into like pharma or something like that. Still wanted to have a job with a salary and benefits. And I was sort of preparing to make that change, and then the economy imploded, and
So is that around 2008?
2008.
Like that implosion? Okay.
That implosion.
Yeah.
So I had been freelancing. I had cultivated this career strategy that was supposed to be temporary, of just saying yes to any kind of writing that anybody asked me to do as long as it paid. And then nobody was going to hire me. I mean, there were no jobs. And even if there was a job, no one was going to, get me in there as a copywriter. And I was trying to make this kind of, I want to say mid-career, but I was like 25.
You're like, I'm already washed up.
Yeah, I have to settle. No, so I just kept doing this thing of looking for work and taking any work that I could. And, things started happening for me. And then one day I turned around and it had been 10 years and I had just been hustling for 10 years, just freelancing. And in the course of doing that, I had fallen into, I was doing less copywriting, less PR writing. I had started working for MTV News for a period of time. I started out there as a blogger at this now dead vertical called Hollywood Crush, where I wrote about young Hollywood gossip. And then when they closed that up, they brought a couple people over to the news side. And so I ended up there. I was writing an advice column for a site called Spark Life. And since I was working in entertainment, it's a kind of a small world. Once people who were my editors at MTV started going to other places because they were constantly laying us all off and like bringing in an entirely new team.
Really?
Yeah. So I ended up
like how?
I feel like it happened. I'm trying to think. There was one purge. There was the purge where they pivoted to video, which I think was when I lost my job. And then there was another purge where they brought in everybody from some other website. Like the editorial leadership would change hands, and then, the whole team would get just kind of purged. Yeah, it was an interesting place to work. But it's entertainment journalism is a really small world. So somebody that I knew from MTV went to Entertainment Weekly, and then they knew somebody at Us Weekly, and Us Weekly started asking me to do TV recaps. And then they started asking me in 2016 to live blog all of the 2016 campaign events. And that was how I ended up going from writing about like American Horror Story to writing about the actual American Horror Story.
Yes.
And yeah, you know, from there, you know, I was also a young adult novelist. So I was really just in an interesting position to kind of see what was happening in the culture from like a bunch of different vantage points. And I did get really interested in writing about it, and you know, was fortunately able to start doing that more over the course of, you know, the 4 years that Trump was in office, because that's what everyone was writing about. And then since then. So yeah, it's been good.
I mean, that's pretty, and that must have been a compliment that they picked you to be the one to comment, you know, about the 2016 kind of like election or debates. Like,
I don't know. I feel
no,
like I think maybe it's just that nobody else wanted to do it, and I understand why.
it's not as
But
fun as like writing about like, yeah, like celebrity. So you could have been like a full on tabloid person. You were like putting a toe in, like you were.
I guess, you know, I mean, so I want to say I feel like I have to defend the honor of Us Weekly, which is, I think it's a step above the tabloids. It's one of the, you know, it's gossip, but they don't make stuff up mostly.
I guess when I say tabloid, I mean like they write about celebrities primarily. And so maybe I am thinking more like gossip and like news rather than like, yeah, straight up lies, which I didn't realize like how much of that was going on until you actually like read through them all when you're in the grocery
There's
store.
like People, Star, Us Weekly, and then like below that there's like the Weekly World News and the National Enquirer, where, you know, so maybe something in there is true, but mostly it's Bat Child found in cave.
The Bat Child. So which one do you think is the worst? Like the Enquirer? Like if you were going to rank them?
This is not
like
my area of expertise. You know, they're all equally good.
They're all perfect. Yeah. That's neat. That's neat. Cause I could definitely see that there was like a point in my life, like right out of college, where I would have loved to write about celebrities, just because like I remember that's how I would bond with my mom and my sister. Like we would just sit around the TV. We would watch like and it was like around the time that Keeping Up with the Kardashians was starting. Like that's just how we bonded. Like we would watch like celebrity TV, and like I don't know why, looking back I'm like, why did we care so much what the celebrities were doing? I think it was different than it is now, where it's just I feel like largely society is really sick of hearing from celebrities. Do you feel that too? Like did you feel it turned at a certain point?
I don't know. I think that what it means to be a celebrity has changed a lot. You know, in the age of the influencer, everything has sort of shifted. And now there's this alchemy of like, you can be a D-lister, but if you're very relatable, then you can be more famous than an A-lister. You know, if you're sort of doing your own thing and you're connecting with your fans directly. That's something that I wrote about amid the pandemic, when, you know, all of the sort of A-list stars had nothing to do. And all of the D-list stars were able to sort of launch themselves as, you know, like influencers, basically. It was an interesting pivot.
I don't know if I'm Z-list. Like I would say, yeah, maybe like T-list. I don't know. I'm definitely.
You're more famous than I am, if it makes you feel any better.
Oh shucks. I mean, like you're an author. This is I'm pretty impressed anytime somebody can churn out a book. I want to hear about, so you have this new book. It's coming out in October. It's called No One Will Miss Her. What is this about, this book?
I have to be very cautious about how I talk about it, because it is a thriller, and I don't want to spoil anything. It is. So as this book opens, it opens in a small town in Maine called Copper Falls. The junkyard is on fire, and the town pariah, a woman named Lizzie Willette, is dead. Her body has been found in this lake house. Yep, there it is. That's the one.
Cool.
In this lake house that she rented to people from out of town, which had made her sort of suspect by the standards of the small community where she lives. So a police officer named Ian Bird shows up to investigate this crime. Lizzie's husband is missing, and he's sort of the prime suspect, as is often the case. The husband is always presumed to have done it. And so Ian Bird starts to uncover secrets about Lizzie's past and, this odd relationship that she had with a young, gorgeous Instagram influencer from the city named Adrienne Richards. And, over the course of this, so the novel has 3 different perspectives in it. One is, you're following Ian Bird as he investigates the crime. One, you're following Adrienne Richards around the city the day after the murder, starting to understand how she may have been involved. And then you have Lizzie narrating from beyond the grave, telling you about her life and what happened to her. So yeah, that comes out October 12th. And it's, I hope, an exciting book, and that people will pick it up and enjoy it.
Oh my gosh, did I say 21st? It's coming out October 12th.
Yes, but that's okay. Now we've corrected it.
Oh God. I gotta get my act together. This is so neat though, Kat. I always like to see what people are like tweeting about, because I feel like it's a good indication of like what is firing somebody up right now. And I noticed something that we both have in common is, and it's been kind of simmering for a while, but now it's really coming out. It's like this idea of outing people that are unvaccinated, which is like insane to me. Like, I'm not sure where this was from. Like, what do you know any unvaccinated famous people? Please tell us, because it's called public health.
Yeah, that's that's a tweet from my friend Lee Stein, and I just added my own commentary to it. To be clear, Lee's not down with outing unvaccinated people. I don't want anybody to think otherwise.
No, she's straight up calling these people like tattletales.
Yeah. I do not know what that is from. I almost don't care, because I feel like the fact that the impulse exists in a way that is, visible, is sort of enough.
Yes. Yeah. It's really icky. And I feel like I find myself trying to explain. I mean, no one should spend all that much time trying to explain anything to anybody on Twitter, but there is such a difference between like, and now with these new mandates coming into New York City, there is a difference between like a business doing what it wants to do, doing what it thinks it's best to stay in business, especially after the last year and a half we've had, and that versus what the government is telling you have to do with these vax mandates. And I've been talking about it, in a sense, like this is segregation by vaccination status. And some people don't see it that way. How dare you call it segregation? And I'm like, well, that is literally what it is. But we're just, the folks that are so obsessed with race, I think, are triggered because they're like, oh, segregation can only have anything to do with race.
Well, an interesting aspect of this is that because, in the city, especially in New York, the largest, I believe, unvaccinated population is Black people. So it may not have, I'm sure it was not intended to be racially discriminatory, but in practice, it is going to impact those communities more severely than it is white folks, which, that's maybe something worth talking about.
Oh, yes. And like Hispanic folks too are hesitant. But when, specifically, I think a lot of the Black community is hesitant because, Tuskegee, and they just don't. It's understandable when you're like, oh, like whole groups of people are like, yeah, I don't feel like the government has my interests front of mind. And what are you going to do? You can't bully somebody into not thinking that anymore. You can't like coerce or shame somebody into forgetting history. And I feel like that's a lot what's trying to happen now. They're trying to kind of rewrite a lot of history so that we can, it's so scary at this point. Like, if you can't see that this is about control over a virus that is 90% survivable. It's like, what do you even tell somebody at this point? I don't know, but it's not. I came out yesterday. I tweeted. I was like, and I thought I had been thinking about this for a while. about saying that I wasn't going to perform at venues in New York City that required the vaccine. I was thinking about it. And a couple of clubs were starting to require it on their own, and I was like, fine. Like, I had no hard feelings towards them, of course. Not like I'm not fronting like I'm passed at every single club in New York City, and like my haters will love to point that out. But and finally, when it came out yesterday, they were going to start mandating this starting, I guess, as early as this month, but definitely for sure by September. I just felt like I needed to say, like, make some kind of a stand, because I said yesterday, like, look, I'm just not going to participate in this. Like, that's the one thing I can do is not perform somewhere where they are requiring a vaccine mandate and or requiring you to write, basically, like, show your papers, um, and then people will say, well, can't these businesses do whatever they want? Well, it's not when it's coming from the top of government. Like, you kind of are putting these businesses like in a tough spot where they have to require something that they may not necessarily be down with just to like feed their families.
Yeah, the impact of all of this on businesses has been really, I think, just tragic. And unfortunately, I don't really have strong opinions because I feel like I'm not informed enough about what all of the different factors are about what would actually be the best thing. Since I do think not that people should be required to get vaccinated, but I kind of wish that they would. Probably be better for folks if they did. It would help increase at least move us in the direction of herd immunity. But it's certainly the impositions and the way that it's been, I don't know, that it feels sort of cobbled together and there's been a lot of contradictory stuff out there has been difficult to see over the course of the past year.
Yes. Oh, it's for sure. It's very confusing. It's and I think that's the goal. I think the media wants us to be confused because they'll be like, well, I did everything I was supposed to. I got the vaccine. People can't even talk about their own side effects, and then you can still get it. You can still pass it. So it just seems like the goalpost is continually being moved, and to say, oh, suddenly now your own natural immunity is not enough. Like, if you got the virus 1-2 times, to still mandate that people get a vaccine for something that they're naturally immune to. It's definitely there's a lot of confusing info out there.
But it's
like
not mandated, right? They just recommend it.
They are going to start mandating it in New York City. De Blasio said, yeah, like, I think starting either this month or next month in September, that to do anything indoors, like gyms, restaurants, which includes comedy clubs, that they're going to start requiring this like key to NYC pass. So it's like there was the Excelsior, which I believe Yankee Stadium was using and a few other people were using, but they're going to start this other thing called like the key to New York City, which is basically like a vax pass for New York City. Which is like, I'm like, if they're thinking about trying to get tourism back, I just don't know if that's the right move because you're just going to be excluding people.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about how difficult it is for people from out of town to use like the subway. This is going to be a whole other layer of difficulty, I guess.
Yeah, it's tricky. There's a lot to like be upset about. I caught this on your feed, which I think was really interesting. And I was reading through this article about, and I've noticed this too, and it's almost like it's become kind of trendy right now to this idea of like being estranged from your family. And of course, like as we go along and more folks are not saying you if you come from like an abusive household that you can't set boundaries with your parents and like ask for better for yourself, but I just feel like since therapy has become more and more kind of common, it seems like it does correlate with this kind of trend of like, oh, I'm cut off from my mom, I'm cut off from my dad, like, and I think it has become a bit more accepted. Is this necessarily a good thing or a bad thing? I wanted to know like what you thought. Not like you should just be like, well, you're obligated to your family and that doesn't mean they can treat you like shit. And you'll always be there. I feel like we should be meeting somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, this came up a lot when I was writing this teen advice column, which I stopped doing in, I guess it was the end of 2018, maybe. And there was an interesting, I don't know if I want to call it a trend, but, a marked increase in the eagerness of young people to see themselves as, not just, sort of misunderstood, but as so misunderstood that they needed to like cut ties with their parents. And it was one of these things where, frequently the person in question was like 16 or 17 years old and still living at home. And they would, be talking about these conflicts that they had with their parents and how like they don't understand me. And, sometimes it was because of, they were like gender questioning or gender nonconforming, or sometimes it was a sexuality issue. It was this sort of the start of this very intense focus on identity as it's currently conceived, as it's sort of currently talked about. And it was odd how it almost seemed like it was considered sort of a badge of honor in some ways to feel like you were so misunderstood by your family that you were just going to cut them off, you were just going to cut ties with them. Like you couldn't be asked or expected to try to work things out. It wasn't even worth it to attempt it, that it was fine to just say, I'm done, and I always thought that it was something I tried to push back against, because I think people, especially when they're young and, they don't know what it's like yet to have an adult relationship with their parents. I don't think that people realize how, intense estrangement actually is. And how much pain it involves, and how, it becomes, a wound that it's not like you just cut ties and you walk away. Like that's a lingering pain. So I think that it's certainly not a decision that should be made lightly.
It is interesting. I wonder if like, I think the way that I see, and I've had disagreements with my family, like my God, like so many, like I had so many blow-ups with my dad just over, and hard times really show you, I think, who your family members are. And I remember I'd have such fights with my dad over like how he was dropping the ball handling my mom's like cancer treatment, and how he just was like, I was noticing like, oh wow, he wants to do it all by himself, even though he is also another man in his 70s and like isn't like, I was so mad. I would yell at him. I'd be like, why are you not hiring like a home aide? And I was like, I was like, that's because he's trying to make up for like maybe not being the best husband like throughout his whole life. And he's thinking like, I need to do this to like make up for it. And it's like, of course, in hindsight, I see what he was doing. But at the time, it was so hard, not only just to like watch my mom like kind of wither away, but we just were fighting so much. But the thing is, there were many times I wanted to just like cut off from my dad. I would even like see a therapist about it. And I think I always come back to the idea like the relationships you have with your family it's like a marriage, where it's like there is sort of the obligation to try a little bit harder. Whereas if you were just dating a guy, sure, just break up. Like, oh, he's a fuck boy, goodbye. It's like, this is your family. And I think it's more helpful to see them as kind of like a marriage and approach it that way than just somebody that you can break up with and turn your back on. I just feel like you owe your blood like a little bit more effort than just like the average person.
I mean, I feel, it's not just that, but also what you owe yourself. There's, this, I don't know. One of the things about growing up is that you do start realizing that your parents are also people, and that's a hard thing to realize, and it's illuminating. And then there's this, period in which you have sort of both lenses, and it's difficult to negotiate, to understand like, here is, my mom or my dad, who I saw as this sort of unknowable alien who's just like a grown up, and there was this, obscurity there. And then you start to see them as a human being, and that can be incredibly uncomfortable, especially if your parents made mistakes, which, obviously all do, some worse than others. But yeah, to to just kind of bail on that before you've really had a chance to reckon with, you know, a more adult approach, not just to your family, but to the world at large, you know, understanding how to relate to other adults as an adult. I think people really deprive themselves, you know, if they bow out of that the moment that it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is like what you said. It's a hard moment when you realize, like, oh yeah, my parents are not just, they're not just this all powerful, unknowable being, which is like kind of how you feel about them when you're a kid, and then you're an adult. You're like, oh, they're like just people too, with faults, like doing the best they can with what they have and the awareness they have at that time. And once you factor all that in, you're like, oh, not that you see them like less as a lesser of a person, but you're just, yeah, they're human. And I, to the degree to which you cannot take how your family treats you, I guess personally, I mean, of course there's so many examples, like of course with real abuse that does feel really personal, but I think the degree to which you can be like, okay, like my parents or my family members are like limited, think of it as like a limitation or like a disability even. It's like, well, they just don't know, they're not self-aware. I know that helps me when I like get mad at my dad. I'm just like, he grew up, he was mad at his dad. Like there's going to be some like kind of backlash. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm going to go to a super chat. Matthew Hammond, what is the best fake story from the lying mags? Oh, like tabloids, do you mean, Matthew?
It's the Bad Boy. It's got to be the Bad Boy.
The Bad Boy? I want to see the Bad Boy. Yeah. I'm surprised the Bat Boy didn't like resurface during all the COVID stuff. I feel like that would have been time. From Matthew Hammond again, throwaway culture has moved to relationships. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it is. I don't know. For me, it's like, it's worth trying to figure things out because, like, I don't know, your family's kind of forever, even if you hate their guts at some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, romantic relationships too is the way that things are now. There's certainly a much greater awareness that you could always just like go on an app and find somebody new. And I don't know, that makes me glad that I've been married for as long as I have. So.
Oh, you are married. All right, back off, boys. She's married. Do you feel like that's, and I do feel like I'm kind of happy to be like with somebody, because I feel like it would be really difficult to date in this climate for many, many reasons. But primarily, I think that I feel like there's an attack on what it means to be feminine. I think there's kind of like an attack on what it means to be masculine. And it's also, you get shit for like, if you're a girl who likes a classically masculine man, it's just everyone gets in your business and tells you, well, you have to be attracted to everybody everywhere, which is insane and impossible. Nobody's attracted to everybody. Like, oh, you're a transphobe if you're not into trans people. Do you feel like femininity and masculinity are being attacked, or is it just?
I'm not sure I'd put it quite that way. I think that, let me think about this. Do I feel like femininity and masculinity are being attacked? I guess so. Something that I have heard, and like I have to really just base this on anecdotes from people that I know. I think that men, especially liberal men, are in a difficult place right now because oftentimes there is a little bit of a mismatch between what women on the left say that they want, you know, in terms of a sort of an egalitarian relationship and a sensitive man who's in touch with his feelings, and what actually excites them. And, you know, you can kind of see this in the data surrounding who people believe should be in the role of the pursuer in relationships. So, you know, despite what, you know, you would imagine, like, if women are about 50-50, you know, on the left and on the right, that a substantial portion of the ones on the left would think that, you know, the woman should, you know, be the pursuer, or at least that it should be egalitarian. But actually something like, I feel like it's something like in the high 80s, the percentage of people who really believe that the guy should always be the one in a heterosexual relationship to do the pursuing. So, you know, that creates a conundrum. I mean, especially creates a conundrum for men who I think don't know how to be, and, you know, feel like they can't be aggressive, or I shouldn't say aggressive, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this notion that like you should pursue, but pursuing isn't in of itself possibly harassment or a violation if she's not interested. And how will you know she's not interested if you don't ask? So yeah, I wouldn't want to be a guy right now, basically. I think that they certainly have a difficult road to navigate at the moment.
How did you meet your husband?
We met through work. We were on a corporate softball team together.
Oh my God. What positions were you playing?
I was catcher. He was third base, and I was playing catcher without a mask or a face guard. So the sort of pivotal moment in our relationship was when somebody threw a ball that took a bad hop off home plate and clocked me right in the face, and I bled everywhere. And apparently this was just, the most romantic and wonderful thing that he'd ever seen.
He was like, I don't know why I'm so turned on by all this blood. When it comes to third base, and we'll figure it out.
But he rescued me from the dirt where I was bleeding, and I can't remember if he found me ice or somebody else did, but that was the memorable meet cute.
How does he listen to your podcast, Femme
Nope.
Chaos? No, he doesn't.
Yeah, Feminine Chaos. No, I wouldn't subject him to that. I think it's important in a marriage for people to have their own interests and to not make unreasonable demands on the other person's time. So I'm not going to ask my husband to listen to my podcast.
I agree with that so much. And there shouldn't, every time I see a joint Facebook account or a joint email, I'm like, somebody fucked up, like why can't people have their own
my
space?
parents have a joint email account. But,
okay.
But they're old.
I'll excuse boomers. Yeah, I will. If age is a thing and like one person can't figure out email, exactly. Like that would make sense. Like my dad can't ever remember his like iPad password. So we'll give it to the olds, but I feel like generally it is so important to keep separate interests and not feel obligated to be in every facet of your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife's life. Because it's like if that falls apart, well, then so will you. It's so important to maintain your own interests and your own kind of space.
It also makes you more interesting, and you can bring that back into your relationship, to have outside interests.
So tell me about, is it called Femme Chaos or Feminine?
Oh, Feminine Chaos. Yeah, just
Feminine
the
Chaos,
the handle Feminine Chaos unfortunately was taken on Twitter, so we had to settle for something else.
And it's they're never doing anything with the handle. The person who
They're
has
not.
your Twitter handle, they're always like, last tweet was in 2015, and then there's like nothing you can do.
I was just squatting on it. Well, good for that person. But yeah, so it's a podcast I do with Phoebe Maltz-Bovey, who is also a culture writer. She, however, has just gone on maternity leave. So I'm holding down the fort for the next, I don't know, several months. Just going to have guests on. And we talk about, culture issues, feminist stuff. We're both sort of dissident feminists, or I don't know, questioning feminists. She's not a libertarian, but yeah. So
she's embarking on the ultimate feminine chaos, which is pregnancy.
Yes, yeah. But we have, I think, if I can say so, I think we have good conversations.
Do you guys? What issues do the two of you like tend to bump heads on?
Oh gosh. We never really fight. I guess I'm trying to think. Do we have any disagreements? Not really. Nothing that I would care to highlight.
Yeah. I think the biggest like jump for me, I remember graduating college thinking that it was like, I looked down on women who wanted to be mothers. I was just like, oh, wow, you're going to reproduce. Like, that's really, why did you go to college if you're just going to like meet some guy, just marry some guy you met in English, freshman English. And it's like, and then looking back, I wonder if part of that was jealousy because I didn't like walk away from college with like a husband locked down. But it was so easy to look down my nose at women who wanted to pursue motherhood. Like you have to work, you have to have a career. Yeah. I mean, I get very like kind of pissed off. I'm like, well, what was the programming that I received that like led me to that to that place of believing, because really, like, the most feminist thing you can do is accept every choice of, every choice a woman will make for what they want to do with their future. um I don't know. I think, did you have a similar kind of, do you still identify as a feminist, or you're more just interested in kind of critiquing?
Yeah, I guess I still identify as a feminist. I'm not ready to relinquish that word to some of the people who I think are doing not good things with it. But I was raised by a feminist mom, a very fierce second wave feminist mom who was also a housewife. So I've never had any trouble kind of putting those two things together and seeing how they can work. And I don't know if I really had particular feelings about women who wanted to be moms. I've never wanted to be one myself. So, I couldn't judge people for wanting to do that. But, yeah, I don't know. When I graduated college, I really was just like, I guess, now I get a job and become a person. And, I was so busy trying to figure out how to make that work that I don't think I really spent a lot of time worrying about other people's choices particularly, or like wondering if I was doing the right thing from an ideological perspective. I was like, I need to pay rent.
That's interesting. You don't want to relinquish the title of feminist to the people who are kind of, I guess, like making a bad name for feminism, or you say like doing the wrong. Who in your mind, or like what kinds of, not to like name anybody specifically, but like
I wouldn't.
how would you describe someone who's kind of like not doing the most with the title of feminist, or kind of fucking it up?
So I think that something that's emerged in contemporary feminism that I don't think is a good trend is to move away from empowering women, or seeing them as, the whole idea is feminism is the radical notion that women are people, and that's what we used to say. But we're now moving away from seeing women as fully human with all of the good and all of the bad that entails, and instead seeing them as something kind of both more and less than, as people who need to be protected from their own decisions, protected from the ordinary shame and regret that a person experiences when they're trying to navigate the world as an adult, especially when it comes to sex. We're doing this. So I think that there are parts of contemporary feminism that are trying to push women away from resilience, which is such an important quality to have for anybody. And I want to try to push back against that. There's a certain cachet at the moment, unfortunately, to claiming to be maximally victimized at any given time. And there's a safety in that because obviously, taking responsibility for yourself is a hard thing to do, especially if you're not sure what you're doing, or, you've made decisions that you ended up regretting. But I just don't think it's ultimately good for women to be sort of infantilized in this way. And I think that a lot of the contemporary discussion about feminism is very paternalistic in a way that really bothers me.
Oh, okay. So like it's demeaning in its very kind of like essence, or the words that are used, or just it's coming from this place of, I don't know, preachiness, or like, oh, we need to protect all these women, like these, like kind of the default setting that they're victims. It sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you go out in public, say on Twitter right now, and suggest that the woman who outed Aziz Ansari as some kind of sexual predator, maybe did something not great, compromised his privacy in a way that she shouldn't have, failed to sort of take responsibility for her own actions in a way she shouldn't have. You'll get like a man in your mentions telling you that you're doing feminism wrong. And I think that that's an interesting wrinkle. I would like to see that not happen. And yeah.
Yeah. And that like that man is doing it to get brownie points from like some chick he's probably trying to sleep with. Like, I'm a male feminist. What are you doing next Friday?
I wonder about that, because I think the thing about those guys who are so sort of performative and are always like, yeah, men are trash. I'm so sorry we're like this. I don't think that even feminist women, even like women who buy into a lot of the other aspects of this, I don't think they necessarily find that attractive. So I'm not sure if that's their goal. I don't want to assign motives to anybody, but if that's what they're trying to do, I don't think it's working.
You're trying to friend zone yourself. Yeah. So how you were on Gutfeld recently, just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
What did you think of all that?
That was my first television experience. Everyone was
Ooh.
very nice. I was very nervous, and I hope it went well. I couldn't really bear to watch it. I tried to watch it with my husband, and I was like, I have to, I fled the room. I was like, I can't see this.
Did he come with you? Like, what was the process like? Did you
No, I live in Connecticut, just outside the city. So I got in a car and went to where is their office? Near Times Square.
Mhm.
And went in the studio and got the little orientation. We all did our thing. We all went and sat, and I got to meet, who did I meet beforehand? Kat Timpf and
Oh yeah, I love Kat.
Jimmy, last
Fela?
name. That's it.
Yeah.
We hung out for a little bit before the taping, so I got at least to get to know them for like a second. It was really, really fun. I would love to do it again. Hopefully, not shaking from the neck down the entire time.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. Did you do your own makeup? Did they say
I
like,
did. Yeah.
ooh, okay. I have to
Yeah.
watch it. I just saw like the tweets and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I stuck around long enough to make sure that my fake eyelashes had stayed in place the entire time. I was like, yeah, all right, those look all right. And then I fled.
Oh, that's the best. Like I've done the blaze a few times and like if there is if the makeup lady is there, I'll be like, please, please, just to get the fake eyelashes on. And then you're like,
Yes.
and then when you're done, you're like, I have to have a day. I have to have a night. Like, where can I go looking like this? I don't want to just like go back to my apartment and like put my fake eyelashes in the pillow. But that's fun.
Yeah, the last time I wore them was for a friend's wedding, and they looked so good that I slept in them. I was like, I don't care. I got to get another day out of this.
You're like, I need like
I woke up, one of them was on my forehead, and I was like, I got to put it back on. We got to go somewhere.
yeah. Oh man, it's nice to get made up. It's like you forget how nice that is. Like I was just realizing like I need to just go through my closet and like really just like allow myself to like go buy some cute clothes. Like I really got to shake out of this like sweatpants kind of mentality I've been stuck in for the last like year or so. Cause it's just, I know it's important. I know it's like superficial, but really it's like if you look good, you feel good and it all comes together.
I'm still trying to kind of get okay with the idea of wearing pants with a formal waistband, a non-elastic waistband. I gotta get myself okay with that and then go shopping.
Yeah. It is scary because you're like with a sweatband, it's like, you know, you don't have to actually face the music that your pants don't fit anymore.
Well, also all of the jeans have gotten very different in the past year and a half. Something happened. I don't know if
They've
I'm
gotten
just
smaller.
well, no, the cuts are all different. Like I don't know, like the 90s jeans are back. And those didn't look good on me when I was in high school, and I really don't want
It's
to wear them
almost like
now.
they want to exaggerate everybody's fupa. It's like, why would they be all high waist? It's like,
Yeah, literally they're called
do
mom
it.
jeans now. They call them mom jeans, and it's a good thing, and you buy them. I mean, somebody buys them. I'm not going to, but
Yeah. Oh, Connecticut's great though. I miss it. I went to school. I went to Fairfield U and I mean the campus very much looks like a golf course. That's probably one of the reasons why I picked it. Like nobody knows what the hell they're doing at 17 years old like to make such a big decision. Like I don't know about your parents, but mine like didn't give me like a ton of guidance. Like I would just go on these college tours and if I saw a lot of cute guys, I'd be like, "All right, sold. Let's apply to this one."
yeah. I basically I applied to 3 schools. I only got into one, which fortunately also gave me a scholarship. But I went and visited, and I was like, I like these buildings. They have ivy on them. Let's do this. And that
Where
was
did you
that.
go?
I went to Drew University.
Oh, okay. Is that in Connecticut too?
No, it's in New Jersey.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. I like Connecticut. Have you been to like the Stress Factory out there in Bridgeport yet? The comedy club?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should
Should
go.
I go? Okay.
Not just because I have sometimes performed there, but just in general, it's a nice club. Yep. They're figuring it out in this weird COVID world. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It feels like the libertarian thing to do is just be like, well, everyone should make their own choice and it shouldn't be kind of forced on anybody. You know, I think the way to coerce people is to be like, oh, here's the benefits, or like, oh, we're making this vaccine better, or try it, in the next round when we've made tweaks.
Yeah, I like the lottery. Or not the lottery, the incentives where they'll give you $50 to get jabbed.
You really think that's good?
Yeah, I mean, I got it done for free, and I'm like, all right, fine, I did my part. But yeah, to encourage people to do it, nothing wrong with paying people. Better than coercing people, or not coercing. Better than just mandating it, I guess. If people are doing it of their own free will, that's probably the best thing.
Do you ever feel like angry a little bit at the people who haven't yet, who are holding out? Because you're like, well, I had to go through it, so.
No, I don't know. I think that a thing about the pandemic and the way that we talk about the virus that I don't like, and I'm trying to stay as far away from as possible, is this notion that, like, if somebody doesn't get vaccinated or doesn't disrupt their life in every possible way to avoid getting sick, that they're doing something bad to you, like they're like inflicting damage on you, or viruses have evolved over the course of hundreds of thousands of years to replicate themselves by getting into our bodies and making us sick and spreading themselves around. And the impulse to kind of blame people for spreading disease when, the virus spreads itself is what it does. I don't like the villainization that is happening.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And it's making it so personal. It's people always love to mention the like, oh, well, where are the my body, my choice people now? And it seems like it's flipped. It's like your body, my choice. And it's wild when these are the same people that like refuse to wear condoms or like I've had 6 STDs. I don't know. I know a lot of fun people, but yeah, I don't think we should be villainizing people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that, we share a planet with all of these microorganisms that literally, like, their only reason for being is to fly up our noses and make us sick, because that's how they survive, the viruses. And if you think about that too much, you'll probably never want to leave your house again without wrapping yourself in a plastic bubble, because it's actually terrifying to realize how vulnerable we all are. But the healthy way to deal with that, and the way we used to deal with it, I feel like, was to cultivate this sort of blissful ignorance of it. We just didn't think about it too much. And I would like to get back to that, rather than moving in the direction of suggesting that, a person who gets sick and therefore, gets other people sick, is like, has done something to you, is trying to kill you. We don't want to live in a society where the basic trust that holds us together is being corroded by this notion that, like, everybody around you really wants you dead.
Yeah, it's so icky, this idea that it's on purpose, and that it really just feels like, okay, oh, do we want to create like a class of sort of like untouchables? I mean, that's what it feels like to me. It's very like anti-human. And it's antivirus. The little viruses, they're just trying to live their lives, do their thing.
Yeah, we're profoundly discriminating against the viruses. I'm kind of okay with that.
Awesome. Kat, where can people find you? Oh my gosh, somebody came through with a super chat right as I'm shutting it down. Justin Middleton, it's hard to take vax shamer seriously. If you are so sure that the masks and social distancing work, just wear yours and stay away from me. I guess I agree. Yeah, I mean, like, no one's ever afraid of catching polio from, that's a terrible example.
I just realized I don't know how polio spreads.
I don't either. I know that my dad had a vaccine and he had just like permanent little kind of like not holes, but weird looking scars in his
Yeah,
arm.
the little inoculation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Classic old school. Old school shots. Okay,
Mhm.
Kat, where can people find you and follow you and buy your book when it comes out?
So my book is actually available for pre-order right now. Any place that,
Ooh.
yeah, if you like thrillers or know somebody who likes thrillers, please, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, or pre-order at your local indie, wherever. I don't care. And I am followable on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not super active on that site. I'm also followable on Facebook, where I never post anything. But I am Kat Rosenfield at all of those places. Just KATROSENFIELD.
Yes, check it out. Here it is on Amazon. No one will miss her. Pre-order it now and then get it in October. Maybe you'll forget about it and then it'll show up at your door and it'll be a nice little surprise.
It's a good book for spooky season. It's,
Ooh,
yeah.
yes. Did you do that on purpose so it would come out around Halloween?
I mean, it wasn't my decision when to release it, but I very much support whoever decided to do it then, because it's basically the book takes place in early October.
My God, that's perfect. And one more super chat from Matthew Hammond. Someone mentioned she wrote with Stan Lee. That is something I think you said you might talk about separately when you have your whole crew together.
Yeah, one of these days. We just released a new novella in the series. It's on Audible, but yeah, I'm a little restricted as to how much I can talk about that without my guys. So
yeah, well, maybe we'll do another thing with your crew later on. Kat, thank you so much for coming on the pod. It was good to talk to you. Thank you for putting on a shirt for me last minute.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll talk soon. Bye.